For more than 60 years, Scottish football belonged to just two names, Celtic and Rangers. Two clubs that didn't just dominate the league, they controlled it. For everyone else, there was a limit. A line you were not meant to cross. You could push, you could challenge, but you were never supposed to win. And yet, this season, something felt different. Not in Glasgow, but in Edinburgh. A club that had spent decades in the shadows suddenly found itself at the top. Game after game, they held on. Week after week, they kept believing. And for a moment, it really looked like it could happen. But this story isn't about what happened, it's about how close they came. Welcome to Hidden Club Stories, where every club carries a story. This is the story of Heart of Midlothian. This video is sponsored by Hidden Shirt Club. They sell premium football shirt mystery boxes with real stories. If you wanna discover your own story, you can use code TRIVINIO10 at checkout. Edinburgh has always been different. Quieter than Glasgow, more measured, less explosive, but no less proud. And in this city, football doesn't divide in the same way. It doesn't consume everything. But for those who care, it runs just as deep. Heart of Midlothian was born in 1874, long before modern football, long before television deals and global audiences. Named after a prison, built by workers, raised in a city that never needed to shout to be heard. Hearts didn't represent power, they represented presence. Tynecastle wasn't built to impress the world, it was built for the people who walked to it every week. For generations, Hearts stood as one of Scotland's biggest clubs. Not just the biggest, but never small. They won titles, they built identity, they created something that lasted. And then the game changed, and slowly they were pushed aside. But Hearts never disappeared, they just waited. In Scotland, football isn't just competitive, it's controlled. Celtic and Rangers don't just win most titles, they define what winning even looks like. Money flows differently, attention follows them. The system bends around them. Breaking that dominance isn't just difficult, it feels impossible. Decade after decade, clubs tried. They had good seasons, great players, and moments of relief. But in the end, the story always corrects itself. Glasgow remained on top, and the rest returned to their place. Hearts knew this better than most, because they had already lived it. They had been close before, and they had seen how quickly it disappears. Hearts' last league title came in 1960. Since then, generations have passed without ever seeing their club lift the trophy again. There were moments, strong squads, cup runs, seasons that hinted at something more. But nothing ever broke through. At times, the club even collapsed under its own weight. They had financial problems, they even had a relegation and uncertainty. There were years when survival mattered more than ambition, and yet through everything the club endured. Because Hearts wasn't built on success, it was built on loyalty, on supporters who didn't disappear when the wins did. On a stadium that never felt empty, even when the future did. And slowly, without anyone really noticing, something began to change. This season didn't start with expectations, it started quietly. No headlines, no predictions, no real pressure. But from the beginning, something felt different. There was structure, clarity, and belief. Hearts didn't play like a team chasing something, they played like a team that knew exactly who they were. Wins started to come, and then even more. And suddenly, they weren't chasing anymore, they were leading. At first, it felt temporary. A good run, a moment that would pass, but it didn't. Week after week, Hearts stayed there, holding their position, refusing to drop. And with every passing game, the question grew louder. Not can they compete, but can they actually do it? Because now it wasn't just a good season anymore, it was something much bigger. As the season moved forward, everything tightened. Points mattered more, mistakes felt heavier, every match carried weight, and still, Hearts remained. Not perfect, not dominant, but resilient. While others chased, they held their ground. The table didn't lie anymore. This wasn't luck. This wasn't temporary. This was real. A club that had waited decades now stood on the edge of history. And with every passing week, the impossible started to feel possible. But football has a way of testing belief when it matters the most. And in the end, it slipped away. Not in a single moment, not with one mistake, but slowly, as football often does. The gap returned, the balance shifted, and the system corrected itself once again. Hearts could have been the first team in almost 40 years to win the Scottish League that isn't Celtic or Rangers. Hearts didn't win, but they came closer than almost anyone had in decades. And sometimes that matters more than the result itself. Scottish football may still belong to the same two names. The structure may not have changed, but something else did, because for one season, a different story existed. A story where belief lasted longer than expected, where the gap didn't feel so permanent, where a club outside the system reminded everyone what football can still be. Not predictable, not controlled, but open. And maybe, next time, it won't just be close. Thank you for watching this episode of Hidden Club Stories. If you want to discover more clubs with identity, history and soul, make sure to subscribe. Because somewhere out there, another story is already waiting. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. I'm trying to hit 700 subscribers until the end of 2026, so be welcome and just subscribe. And if there's a club that you think that deserves its own episode, let me know in the comments. I might cover it next. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next Hidden Club story.